What's up, everybody? It's Ty the Bourbon Guy, and welcome to another whiskey haul. This one is the first one of 2024, so let me start by saying Happy New Year. I hope that this is a fantastic year for you, and whatever your goals are, whatever you're trying to accomplish this year, I hope you just knock it out of the park. And speaking of which, I couldn't think of a better video to kind of start the year off with than brands that I'm really excited to see where they go from here. So maybe brands that made a splash, or maybe some up and coming in 2023, and I think now as we get into 2024, trying to see where they go from here. Maybe they had some initial success, maybe some batches or blends or different things that they've done has gotten on different lists. I think everybody in the world has a top list of 2023, and some of these bottles are actually on that list, but I think where it goes from here is interesting to me. So now you've done what you need to do to kind of get into the enthusiast world, and people are now talking about different whiskeys, but to go from there a little bit further, and where do you go from here? Are you planning on getting better distribution throughout the country? Are you planning on having more core products in your lineup, or whatever it is? I'm always curious to see where a brand kind of goes after they hit that initial success. So, first one that comes to mind for me is 13th Colony. 13th Colony is one out of Georgia that their double oaked bourbon, I think, has been on everybody's top list. I have not got a chance to try it. I'm sure it's fantastic. But I try to focus more on some other products that are available. If there are limited releases in general, that's great. But what's available to just the everyday consumer? So these two bottles, the bourbon and the rye, are not actually available in Indiana yet, but they are available for purchase online and can be shipped to you. So that's how I was able to get those. I still am excited. I mean, one way or the other, if the double oaked is good, that tells me that the whiskey in general is going to be good. I've heard some people actually mention that they like the rye better than the bourbon, which I feel like that's kind of becoming more common. People maybe are getting a little bit more used to rye whiskey than maybe they previously were, or maybe the profiles just are kind of more aligning, maybe. I don't know. But 13th Colony, with them being on everybody's lists of top of 2023, I'm really curious how just their bourbon and their rye taste. So that's why I went with these two to start. So both of these bottles are actually 95 proof. I think that's a great proof point for a whiskey. I think that it kind of keeps it more of like that mass appeal to where a lot of people are going to enjoy it. Whether you enjoy whiskey, if there's a lot of flavor there, regardless of the proof, you still might, as an enthusiast, maybe can still get behind that whiskey. And I think if you're new to whiskey and maybe you don't want something over 100 proof, that still kind of keeps in your wheelhouse as well. So I'm excited to see where we go from here and how these actually taste, and if they're really worth the hype, or is it just one of those things that people grab onto it and all of a sudden it's on everybody's list. But we'll see one way or the other. Speaking of everybody's list, this is another one that was on everybody's list, Kluke. Now this particular one is the blend of straight bourbon whiskeys, and for those keeping track, batch 7, this is 116.4 proof, 58.2% alcohol. So mash bill just says high and low rye. So apparently must be the blend between the two, distilled in Kentucky and Indiana. So I love the transparency on the front of the label. I love that I don't have to guess at what this product actually is. They're very transparent in the sense that they didn't distill it, that they're just blending it. And then they kind of give you the mash bills here, kind of. At least to give you a better idea of what it is that you're looking at. I'm all for that transparency. A lot of times I would love to know where in Kentucky, but chances are with kind of what's out there, I think either way that it's going to be good. Indiana, I think we all know where that comes from. But, just kind of this blending, we're starting to kind of see more of this where maybe we didn't see it before, and all of a sudden now it's okay as long as you are transparent about it. If you blend Kentucky, Indiana, and maybe even Tennessee, we're starting to see what can possibly come out of this, and even some other states that we're starting to see enter into the game. I think we can see that there's a whole new world of bourbon that's going to be opened up just by this blending process. So Kluke, I've heard a lot of good things about it. It's another one on the list, so it's another one I had to grab. We'll see how this one tastes, and I'll officially review it here soon. Next, we have Milam and Greene. Now, this is actually out of Texas. It's a Texas-based company, and I want to make sure I get this right, but I believe that the distillate comes from Kentucky and Tennessee and is then finished and then bottled in Texas. Okay. So Milam and Greene is one that, I've heard them on a bunch of podcasts lately. It seems like they're on a lot of different ones. And Heather Green, has been on these and doing the interviews and all this other stuff. And just seems like a brand that I could really get behind. She seems very personable, seems like just a brand you want to get, a person or a brand that you want to support and get behind, and just see what they're at least doing, at least taste their stuff and see if it's for me or not. Again, this is another one that ended up on a lot of people's lists. Fred Minnick put some Milam and Greene products on there. There's some other sources that I kind of go to that I trust their palates, and same thing. Everybody's kind of saying that they enjoy some of these different products. So this particular one is the very small batch. I kind of thought that if I'm going to start with one, I thought maybe this was kind of the one to go with. It's a straight bourbon whiskey finished with charred French oak staves. Sometimes the French oak staves can be kind of hit or miss for me. Sometimes I really, really like it. And then other times I feel like that French oak stave almost gives it some type of artificial note that I'm not a fan of. So it just depends. It depends on that blending process, that finishing process, whatever it is. And we'll kind of see how it goes from there. But I'm excited to review all of these. I don't think that there's necessarily going to be a bad one in here, but I'm more excited to see who's going to kind of take the reins and just run away with this whole thing and really step up to the plate and not just provide a good whiskey, but one that's going to make me come back and want to buy another bottle. That's what I think the importance is right now. And I think we've kind of lost that somewhat in whiskey, where everybody wants to go get that bottle, or if you make content, get sent these bottles. But which ones are you actually purchasing for yourself? Which ones are you going back to because they just are that good? That's what I'm looking for. So anyway, enough of that. Off my soapbox. Let's keep going. Rieger. I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly. It's one that I've heard pronounced a million different ways, but Rieger is based out of Kansas City, and I used to live in Kansas City, so I'm always interested in what they have to do. I also have a Kansas National Championship basketball bottle from them that will never be open, but that's one of the ones that won't be open just because, it's a commemorative type of bottle. I have other bottles from them that are open, so don't worry for those that want to open your bottles. This particular one is a store pick. Now, this one is a straight bourbon whiskey finished in cognac Ferrand. I hope I'm saying that right. XO cask. The thing that interests me the most about this is the proof. So this actually was a store pick from a local grocery store, and I've somewhat built a relationship with them. And I go into the store recently, and as soon as I walk in, I see the guy that manages it that I talk to every time I'm in there, and he walks up, grabs this bottle, and hands it right to me and said, "This is the one you need to know about." I said, "Great, I love it." And he pointed right at the proof. 72% alcohol. Man, okay. So sometimes, when it comes to proof, it can be hot just to be hot. And for me personally, I get no flavor off of it. I think it's too hot. And so watering it down maybe provides more flavor, and the higher proof maybe provides a higher concentration of flavor. So it's this weird game that I play with proof, but I don't necessarily seek out a proof just for that. But 72% alcohol, I think, is pretty impressive. The thing when I talked to him about this bottle that really stood out to me was that he mentioned that he didn't feel like it drank its proof. So yes, that's crazy high. But is it 144 proof? Does it drink like that? He actually, I think he said maybe like 115, 120, or even 110 or something like that he had mentioned to me that he felt like it drank lower. And I don't know if that has to do with the finishing process. Finishing it in that cognac cask. Does that kind of help soften that a little bit? I'm not sure. But, it's a finished one, so the color kind of can be misleading here. But still, just, I don't know. Again, to have a bottle on my bar that's 72%, just for the fact that I could say that, was interesting enough. Rieger is one that I, have talked with a few different brand managers or people on their social media or whatever it may be in general, and I always like to support them when I can. This is a grocery store that did a pick, and I always support them. So kind of it was a no-brainer that I needed to try this bottle and see what it's all about. Finishing it in cognac, we'll kind of see where that goes and what that brings. But their Rieger Kansas City whiskey, I've actually taken with me to do a few different tastings, and that one actually wins more tastings probably than anything else that I bring in. So I think that it's good for people. I think anybody would actually enjoy it, but those tastings that I typically do are for people that are relatively new to whiskey. And so anytime that that's happened, they seem to really enjoy that. And I think it's probably has to do with their finishing process as well, on just the regular Kansas City whiskey, but you never know. This one though, I'm excited. I'm excited for all these. The spoiler alert, that's what's going to happen. I don't know that there's anything else to say about this particular one. It says extra fine. What does that really mean? I don't know. Private stock, but it is a pick. So we'll see where it goes. And last but not least, Circle City Whiskey. Of course, I had to represent Indianapolis. And this one is, really cool because it's local. And I think the thing that's important to know about them is that they source, but again, transparency is everything. This actually says on the label, distilled by MGP. Now, hopefully that shows up. But so there's two different bottles that I have here. This particular one is the bottled and bond. This is the batch 1. Of course, going to be 100 proof. Mash bill is 7521.4, distilled in Indiana. So again, we not only know that much, but on the label, they also put distilled by MGP. So, that transparency is huge for me personally. They are very upfront about it. I actually got a chance to talk with Drew, who runs Circle City, and got a chance to go taste some different barrels and things like that. This particular bottle is, let's see what proof, 113.7. It's a 7-year. And it says selected by Indy's influential palates. So different people in the Indy area got together and selected this one. So that's really cool just to be part of that community, really kind of know who's in that city and, work on building a brand with them, make them part of the process and just kind of make it an inclusive deal. I think it was awesome. I had a great afternoon talking with him over there and tasting whiskey and trying different barrels. It was just a great time. And we talked about Circle City a lot just so I can get a better understanding of them. But, we also talked about content, different things that I do. He was asking questions about that. But then we also talked about whiskey in general. We talked about what we like, what we don't like, and just kind of went from there. And it was a great conversation. And it was a brand that, again, I didn't really know. When I first saw Circle City, I thought it's a little gimmicky. I live in Indy. You're kind of just trying to play off of that. But when I actually got a chance to meet Drew and talk with him, I understood where he was coming from. And I look at other brands like Nashville Barrel Company and how much success they've had. Why can't Indianapolis have something similar? So I 100% could get behind it. He seems to really know what he's doing, especially when it comes to picking barrels. I can attest to that personally. And it just is exciting to see where they kind of go from here. And I hope they have a great 2024 as well, along with everybody else. So my hands are full. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of whiskey I need to review. I'm glad to finally get to this whiskey haul video out. I'm glad that we're finally in 2024 and excited to have a great year. There's a lot of content I plan on shooting for you all. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.